How are Canadians reacting to Trump's tariff threat? Surging patriotism in the face of a trade war. This is Now You Know on News Radio.
The top news stories
and conversations that matter to you.
This is Now You Know with Rob Snow on News Radio.
I'm David Smith, filling in for Rob Snow today. Well, it's been a pretty chaotic few days, hasn't it? From a possible trade war to a trade war to a pause on the trade war, Donald Trump and his tariff threats have a lot of us in a bit of a tizzy. New polling from the Angus Reid Institute is shedding some light on how Canadians are reacting to all of this. John Rowe is a research assistant with the Angus Reid Institute. He joins me now. Hi, John. Welcome back.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, David.
So how have Canadians reacted to all of this conflict with the U.S.? How is the public's resolve?
Well, we had done a survey kind of coincidentally timed in December where we looked at kind of pride in Canada and we compared it to data taken 30, 40 years ago. And we had found that pride in Canada had declined significantly. The percentage of Canadians that said they were very proud in Canada, to be Canadian had declined from 78% in 1985 to 34% in December. So we repeated that again this month just to see how things have changed within the face of this Trump tariff threat. See whether or not Canadians are kind of responding by saying, okay, yeah, maybe we are proud to be Canadian. We're looking at this and we're in the face of something that's kind of almost existential in some ways. And we have found an increase in Canadians that saying that they're proud. It's gone up by 10 points who say they're very proud. And so we're kind of seeing a bounce back in pride kind of in the face of these Trump tariff threats.
Yeah, 10-point jump, 44% compared to 34% of Canadians now say they feel very proud to be Canadian. Well, that's encouraging for national unity's sake. In terms of how people want the government to respond, John, you know, we have this 30-day window, well, 28 days now, time is a-ticking. We've got this window of opportunity. Are people thinking about it? What do people want to see some action on?
Well, one of the things we put in front of respondents was whether or not Canada should look to eliminate interprovincial trade barriers. So that's been a big topic of discussion in the face of these Trump tariff threats. How can we improve kind of our own trade within the country if we're looking at some significant declines south of the border? And there's basically kind of unanimous agreement that we should be working to quickly eliminate these interprovincial trade barriers. And this is something that we see kind of across political lines. Conservatives, Liberals, NDP supporters all say the same. The other thing that we put in front of Canadians was whether or not that we should be looking to build pipelines across the country, ensure that there's oil and gas kind of available from west to east, which currently isn't the case without it going to the U.S. first. And there's pretty strong agreement on that as well, too. 4 and 5 say that that's something that we need to do kind of in the face of these Trump tariff threats.
How are people feeling about the future of our relationship with the United States, given this whole situation? Are people ready to forgive and forget? What's the mood?
It's an interesting question because if we're looking at this after these, if we don't end up having tariffs on us, or maybe those tariffs do come in 30 days, how should Canada kind of respond to the future? There maybe is a future past Trump's term where we establish normal relations. So we put in front of Canadians, should we focus on repairing the relationship with the U.S. and restore the relationship we had prior to the tariffs? And about 60% say that should be the case. But there's also about 90% who believe we should be reducing our reliance on the U.S. as a trade partner. So looking to other countries to prevent kind of this situation from happening in the future, because this is such a huge portion of our trade that any sort of disruption like this is very damaging to our economy. So I think Canadians are looking at this and realizing that perhaps we should be diversifying our trade significantly.
Very interesting. One thing I always like to look at in polls like this is the overall engagement. You know, on this side of the mic, John, I like to think people out there listen to me every day and hang on every word I have to say about every single issue, but I know that's not the case. On the U.S. tariff threat, how much are people paying attention to this?
Well, we regularly ask Canadians when we're looking at different topics, how closely are you following this? Very closely, just scanning the headlines to try and gauge different levels of engagement on these different issues. And the Trump tariffs is one of the highest that we've seen, certainly in the past couple years, and going back into our tracking data. So it's about 56% of Canadians say they're very closely following this situation. The only highest thing that we have in recent years that was that close was the emergence of COVID-19 in 2020. So this is very significantly at the forefront in Canadians' minds, and they're very much paying attention to it. And I think that it kind of checks out because it has kind of been the top of the headlines across the board over the last couple of months.
Yeah, 9 out of 10 Canadians saying they are following it. The last time it was that high was the pandemic, so that speaks to how much of an issue it is nationally across the board. And are people worried they will be personally impacted by a trade war with the U.S.?
Yeah, there is some concern among Canadians. We've seen issues related to the economy kind of increase over as this kind of has unfolded. People concerned with the U.S. tariffs in general, that's risen as well. But we also asked, do you think this will impact your own personal job security? Do you think your own job is safe if these tariffs come into play? 3% of Canadians say they expect to lose their job. So there are Canadians out there who are worried that this could cost them their employment, which is kind of scary for a lot of people out there. 30% are less concerned, but they're a little bit worried that this could have impacts on them. Of course, there's a lot of Canadians out there who rely on trade with the U.S. as part of their jobs. I think in Ontario, it's kind of manufacturing. Where I'm based in Alberta, there's a lot of oil and gas jobs that kind of rely on export to the U.S. So I think there are a lot of people out there who are looking at this and worried personally about what this could mean for them in their employment.
Very interesting findings today. Thank you so much, John, for joining the show to share them with us. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me on again, David.
That's John Rowe. He's with the Angus Reid Institute. Again, those findings are published now, angusreid.org, if you want to dig into some of the numbers there. We just scratched the surface of it in that interview, some really interesting stuff. And we'll be keeping an eye on the public opinion part of this whole story as we make our way through the program today. I'm David Smith, filling in for Rob Snow. A short break now. This is Now You Know on News Radio.
You have questions
Now You Know with Rob Snow has the answers
on News Radio.
And welcome back to the show. I'm David Smith, filling in for Rob today. We continue to follow all of the ups and downs and the ins and outs of the Trump tariff threat and Canada's response to it. The Conservative Party of Canada is calling on Prime Minister Trudeau to recall Parliament so that MPs can debate measures to respond to Trump's many demands and prepare the country for a possible trade war. Andrew Scheer is the Conservative Party House Leader. He joins me on the line now. Hello, Mr. Scheer. How are you?
I'm doing well, thank you. Thanks for having me on the show.
Yeah, thank you for taking the time. So why are you calling on Trudeau to bring back Parliament?
Well, it is insane that in the middle of the biggest economic threat that has faced Canada in generations, that we have a lame duck prime minister and a parliament that has been shut down while the Liberal Party has an internal family feud. There's a great deal of uncertainty out there. A lot of people are worried about their jobs. A lot of workers are worried about what a tariff being imposed on Canada would do to their livelihoods. And Parliament isn't sitting because Justin Trudeau won't let it. We need to know what's in the deal. We need to know what new spending might be required. We need to hold the government to account to make sure it's actually doing what it says it's going to do. And none of that is happening because the Liberals won't let Parliament sit. So that's why we're calling on the Liberal Party, on Justin Trudeau, to recall Parliament so we can get answers on behalf of Canadians.
Okay. I think the Liberals might suggest, well, Parliament hasn't been sitting, but we managed to achieve a 30-day pause in the tariffs anyway, so we're responding to this threat effectively without Parliament. What would you say to that?
Well, many of the things that will need to be done to secure the border need legislative changes. Pierre Poilievre has outlined a conservative plan, what we're putting forward to not just increase the presence of border guards, including more equipment and surveillance technology, but also giving border guards more jurisdiction over longer on the entire border, not just at border crossings. Those types of policy changes require changes to legislation. New spending has to be approved by Parliament. So it's all well and good to say there's a deal. I mean, think about this. We just had the President of the United States making all kinds of threats against Canada, and Justin Trudeau's way of announcing the deal is through Twitter, through a tweet. I mean, that's no way to govern a serious G7 country, a NATO partner. We need to have Parliament sitting so that MPs can question the government, so that we can make the necessary legislative changes to actually enact a stronger border provision and to crack down on fentanyl as well. Our leader, Pierre Poilievre, has made a wonderful announcement today, a fantastic policy announcement to get tough on fentanyl dealers and traffickers and manufacturers. We should be doing these things, securing our border and cracking down on fentanyl, not to please the United States, but for the sake of Canadians. Too many Canadians die every year because of these awful drugs, and that's another reason why we need Parliament to sit so we can actually tackle this.
Yeah, I want to ask you about that fentanyl announcement, but just in a few minutes, I'd like to just hammer home a few points on Parliament here. Are you saying then, Mr. Scheer, that you would be open to continuing to work with the Trudeau government, possibly support some legislation being passed if the House were to be recalled, instead of defeating the government and sending the country to an election? Just to be clear on that.
Well, look, we need to see something serious from the government, not just a tweet, before we make commitments. We don't deal in hypotheticals. Right now, Justin Trudeau has not informed Canadians or Parliament about how he would enact any of the things that he says are in this deal. That's another reason why we have to have Parliament sitting. The government controls the dates of confidence votes. They have a great deal of power in terms of when those votes would take place. So there are mechanisms in place that they could use to put forward a serious package that we could look at. We want to see our reforms adopted. Justin Trudeau, not only has he done nothing for 9 years on cracking down on fentanyl and on the border, he's actually made the situation much, much worse. The immigration minister admitted that they've lost over between 50,000 and 200,000 people who are no longer eligible to be in Canada, have just fallen through the system. They don't know where they are. So we need to get Parliament back so that we can put forward our plan to take serious measures to secure the border, to question the government on what's going on and what the plan is to make sure that this 30-day pause turns into a permanent deal. And none of that is happening right now because the Liberals are too busy with their partisan self-interest. And I find it very telling that the leadership candidates themselves aren't taking this seriously. It's a sad sign of what's likely to come with a new Liberal leader. Neither Chrystia Freeland nor Mark Carney are calling for Parliament to come back. That shows you the disregard that the Liberals have for our democratic institutions, and it's just shameful.
Conservative Party House Leader Andrew Scheer is with us. We'll stop here for a short break. More with Mr. Scheer on the other side. I'm David Smith, filling in for Rob Snow today. This is News Radio.
No question goes unasked or unanswered.
Now you know with Rob Snow. Returns on News Radio.
I'm David Smith, filling in for Rob Snow today. This is Now You Know on News Radio. Andrew Scheer, the Conservative Party House Leader, is with us. Mr. Scheer, the two front runners in the Liberal Party's leadership race, Mark Carney and Chrystia Freeland, have promised to get rid of the consumer carbon tax. I'm unclear on the procedure behind that. Maybe you can help me out here. The carbon tax, the consumer portion, is part of a much broader piece of legislation called the Greenhouse Gas Pollution Pricing Act. Can the next Liberal leader get rid of the consumer carbon tax without a vote in the House of Commons to repeal part of that legislation?
Well, anything that's in legislation needs to be repealed through a vote. But I don't think this is something that we have to worry about because I don't believe Chrystia Freeland or Mark Carney for a second. They both believe in carbon taxes. They've both been promoting this and defending it. In fact, Carbon Tax Carney has earned that nickname, Carbon Tax Carney, because he loves the carbon tax so much. He was actually fighting for Justin Trudeau to raise it. He's quoted in numerous clips where he says the carbon price is far too low. The carbon tax is far too low. He's a big proponent of it. And we've seen Liberals do this before. Leading up to the 2019 election, when I was campaigning, I called out the fact that the Liberals were going to raise the carbon tax after the election. The Liberals promised they wouldn't, and the ink wasn't dry on the writs going back from Elections Canada before Justin Trudeau said, yes, they were in fact going to raise the carbon tax. So Liberals have done this before. On the eve of an election, they make all kinds of promises that they're not going to raise it. Now they're promising this and that. After the election's over, they break those promises because they fundamentally believe in it. They believe that consumers should pay more for home heating and groceries because of their radical ideology. And the only way that voters can be sure that we're going to get rid of the carbon tax once and for all is to elect a conservative government, because we do not believe in the carbon tax, period, in any form.
Okay, thank you for that. Back to the issue of fentanyl and the tariff threat from Mr. Trump. Your leader, Pierre Poilievre, announced today that if he's elected the next prime minister, he would bring in a life sentence for trafficking even small amounts of fentanyl. Why?
Well, I would just push back on that characterization of even small amounts. Fentanyl is deadly in very, very small doses. It doesn't take much to turn a dose of fentanyl into a lethal dose. And if someone's trafficking 40 milligrams of fentanyl, that's enough to kill 20 people. And what we've seen as a country is a dramatic increase in opioid deaths. There's no such thing as safe supply for these dangerous drugs. And if someone is trafficking in fentanyl, manufacturing it, they know that they are going to kill someone. Someone is going to die from ingesting the drugs that they've produced or that they've trafficked. So just like if you shot a gun at a crowd and randomly aiming it around, you don't know who you're going to kill, but someone's going to die. And so we're going to apply the principle that we would apply to that scenario to drug trafficking and manufacturing of fentanyl. I believe it's a common sense approach that's going to send a clear message to these gangsters that if they continue trafficking in this deadly narcotic, they are going to face serious penalties that will put them away for life.
Do you think that it's odd that the Trudeau government is beefing up their response to fentanyl trafficking without making any changes to their existing drug legislation? As you point out, even a few milligrams of fentanyl can be deadly, and yet decriminalization is still an issue that the federal government, still a policy that the federal government had been supporting up until this whole tariff mess. What do you make of the disconnect there?
Well, it's a huge disconnect, and again, it shows. I really hope your listeners reflect on this. It shows what the Liberals believe in as a party and as people. They believe that more and more drugs should be legalized. They don't believe that we should be focusing on recovery and going after the traffickers as a primary point of our drug policy. They believe in so-called safe supply. They work very closely with the British Columbia government to make it legal to smoke crack, to ingest opioids, to do all kinds of dangerous drugs in public places.
My conversation with Conservative Party House Leader Andrew Scheer. I'm David Smith. This is Now You Know on News Radio.
Critical thinking is not dead.
Now You Know with Rob Snow
Returns on News Radio. The Newsday Panel.
Yes, it is. David Smith here in for Rob Snow. Today it's time for the Newsday Panel. On the panel today we have Chris Sims, Alberta Director, Canadian Taxpayers Federation. Hello, Chris.
Hi, thanks for having us on.
And Tim Powers is here as well, Chair of Summa Strategies and Managing Director of Abacus Data. Hello, Tim.
Look, Dave, I would have just been happy enough that you disposed of Rob today and that you've ran a coup. But to be on with Chris Sims, one of my favorite people in the world, is a highlight for me. And you too, Dave.
Very good. Very good.
Hi, Tim. Nice to hear you too.
I want to start with some domestic politics today, but it is all, of course, linked back to Donald Trump and the tariffs. Poilievre's pivot. Interesting report from Radio Canada on how the Conservative Party is responding to the way that the tariff crisis, the tariff threat, is taking over public attention. I'll read a little bit from the story here. This is Radio Canada this morning. A possible tariff war with the United States, Justin Trudeau's departure, and the Liberal leadership race are all upsetting Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre's campaign plans. And behind the scenes, not all Conservatives agree on how to adjust. Quote, "The carbon tax is no longer the ballot box question," a Conservative source told Radio Canada. "But we've invested so much money in fine-tuning that message, it's hard to abandon it completely," end quote. Sources told Radio Canada the Conservative Party has commissioned a series of internal surveys to find the best way to adapt Poilievre's message. The aim is to test new lines of attack against the Liberals. And I dare say I think we have seen that over the past few days. Poilievre had a press conference on Sunday. He had a press conference on Tuesday. He has a press conference starting in just a few minutes from now in Vancouver. Tim, I'll start with you. What are your thoughts here? Good communication strategy? What do you read into this?
Well, not surprised at all, first of all, that the story's out there. Conservatives love to muse about conservative things and do it in secrecy when they're on the eve of potentially winning an election. To the content of the story, yeah, I think that is happening, as you just pointed out, Dave. I mean, I think the Pierre Poilievre today or yesterday, the news conference on dealing with fentanyl dealers and how he would treat them. You can't be a one-trick pony. I think Pierre used the carbon tax and the carbon tax election effectively because he used it as a symbol of everything that was wrong with the Liberal Party and as a symbol of the affordability crisis. But if your main opponents are taking it off the table and the person you wanted to battle is not going to be there, then you do have to pivot. That's just smart politics.
Back to the story from Radio Canada here. Quote, "The start of a tariff war with the United States is changing voters' moods. It's harder to talk about a broken Canada when there's a growing sense of patriotism," another Conservative source said. Chris, you worked as a journalist on Parliament Hill covering the federal government. What do you make of this need by the Conservatives to pivot? Is pivot the right word? Augment? Add to their messaging? What are your thoughts?
I'd go with adjust. So I do think that they need to adjust their message, which they did quite quickly. And I will point out, I do have to stress, the carbon tax is still here.
Yep.
It is still going up April 1st. And for diesel, which is, of course, the lifeblood of our economy, it's what moves everything we need to eat and use, it's going up by 20% April 1st. So we're basically like hitting ourselves in the face with the tariff right here in Canada. So that is still a clear and present danger. None of the leading Liberal candidates have sworn to ultimately and completely get rid of the carbon tax. Carney's talking about hiding it so that we don't see it on our bills anymore. That's not the same as scrapping it. However, to both of your points, which are very well made, they do need to adjust, and I think they're doing that quite well. As far as CTF stuff goes, we still have a doubled debt. We still have an inflation problem. We still have a problem of censorship. And we still had a problem until very recently of a big capital gains tax increase. So there's fortunately a whole lot of work that the Conservatives have already done on these topics. So all they need to do is grab the book back off the shelf.
What do you think, Tim, of the issues Poilievre has chosen in this process of adjusting his message? He pitched the Conservatives' own plan on the border. I have to point out it's much the same as what the Liberals' plan on the border is, but they would go about it in a conservative way. And the way Poilievre described it was certainly much different than the way Trudeau has described it. But today it's all about fentanyl. Fentanyl crisis. stronger penalties for fentanyl traffickers. Polyev put out a new high production value video on social media all about fentanyl. It's evocative. It's a very emotional video. Do you think that drugs, border security, public safety, are these winning messages for winning issues for the Conservatives? Is Polyev comfortable playing in the messaging sandbox on these issues?
Dating back to the beginning of time or thereabouts, because I'm older than you and Chris. Only a little bit.
Really?
A little bit.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay.
These issues of security and crime, as Chris particularly knows because she covered it when Harper was here, they've always been winning issues for the Conservatives. It's what the Conservative base and those, some people outside the Conservative base that Polyev is hoping to bring in support. And I think right now the smart thing about the fentanyl announcement is it's on those who are supplying, not those who are using. And I think anybody who comes from a family that has dealt with drug addiction or dealt with a relative going through that horror, and anybody else can fully emotionally embrace the notion that these drugs are killer. They ruin lives, so let's go after them. It also fits conveniently, to use Chris's word, adjustment with what the Americans are asking for. So I don't see it as a lose per se. You will have lawyers, civil rights lawyers, who say you can't do that. I think Pierre Poilievre will welcome that debate.
Chris, on a different issue quickly before we break, because this is developing this morning, Mark Carney says he will get rid of the capital gains tax increase, whereas the current government, the finance minister, Dominic LeBlanc, says they're just going to delay it even further. Do you welcome at the Canadian Taxpayers Federation Mark Carney's commitment to getting rid of that capital gains tax increase?
For sure. So Polyev has already been right out of the barn on this, saying that he would get rid of it completely. And now it's very good to see Carney, and I think Freeland as well, had said that she would get rid of it completely. And that's, of course, because if we just delay it, all we're doing is drawing a runway pattern for businesses to flee Canada until that big deadline hits and they get nailed with this capital gains tax increase. The C.D. Howe Institute showed that with a capital gains tax hike, we'd have 400,000 fewer jobs, and it would sink our GDP by $90 billion. So, yeah, cut it out completely now. Don't just delay it.
Okay. All right, we have to stop here for a break. Lots more still ahead. I'm here with Tim Powers, Summa Strategies, Chris Sims, Alberta Taxpayers Federation. I am David Smith, in for Rob Snow today. This is Now You Know on News Radio.
Now You Know with Rob Snow continues on News Radio.
David Smith here, in for Rob Snow today. It's our Newsday panel here with Tim Powers from Summa Strategies, Chris Sims from the Canadian Taxpayers Federation. What do you guys think of this so-called fentanyl czar position the Trudeau government has created? We finally got some specifics out of the public safety minister yesterday on what the fentanyl czar does. Quote from David McGuinty, the federal minister of public safety: "They will need to integrate the fentanyl fighting efforts of federal and provincial law enforcement, of attorneys general across the country, and of work in labs at Federal Department of Health to track and trace precursor chemicals and used to make the opioid. Then there is work at the Department of Global Affairs that it's doing to talk to China, a source of input chemicals for fentanyl, as well as Mexico, another source of production." End quote. That all sounds well and good. Sounds like a lot of work. But am I naive in thinking that much responsibility might be better vested in someone with actual executive authority? Perhaps a cabinet minister. Perhaps a cabinet minister in charge of, let's say, the safety of the public. Tim, what is the point of this fentanyl czar?
We nailed it. It's symbolic, right? Trump likes symbols. Trump likes big, shiny things. Czars, we haven't had those since Russia. We know Trump likes Russians. So it's all about that. The real thing that will matter for Canadians is, to understand what our fentanyl problem actually is. It isn't as described based on all sorts of research. what the Americans describe it as being, what goes across the border, but it's concerning enough. So the outcomes will be more important than the symbol and whoever sits in that chair, and are real strides being made addressing the problems of fentanyl that exist in this country. And you only need to go to some of our bigger cities or smaller ones, and you can see the scourge that fentanyl is having. So the Tsar is great in title, Russian in nature, but the real Russian is going to be dealing with what's happening on the streets.
Chris, what do you make of this? Fentanyl czar, more a PR exercise than anything else? What do you think?
So just taking off my taxpayer's hat and putting on my communications hat, I think it's smart. To Tim's point, symbols are really important. I would say that icons are really focusing. So if you have a symbol or an icon like this, it's better able to focus attention on a problem. And that way we'll see, hopefully really fulsome updated reports and then some action behind it. I know from very personal experience, one of my most beloved family members overcame a severe drug addiction. I couldn't be prouder of him. He's now the sole breadwinner for his family. I also have law enforcement in my family. This problem is completely out of control. To Tim's point, it's not just big cities anymore. What we used to see on the frightening downtown east side of Vancouver is now in every single small and medium-sized city in Canada. There's tents, there's our fellow citizens wandering around just completely in misery. So this is a severe issue here at home. And back to the taxpayer's point, if this is the reason, if this is the linchpin for us getting massive trade taxes hit against us, which is what tariffs are, then yeah, we better play ball, because we can't afford not to.
Okay. So my cold-hearted political cynicism aside, Tim, there is some public benefit in this, even if it is a communications exercise.
Yeah, look, if the Tsar, hopefully he won't behave if it's a he, like former Russian Tsars did, but maybe he will. If the Tsar, whomever that person may be, is able to make a dent in the huge problem, because it's not going to get fixed overnight, and there's so many tentacles to it. But I think, again, I get people who see it, who live it, who understand it, recognize more needs to be done. So actions, in the short term, symbols matter. In the long term, for people's lives, real action is going to be critical.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Thank you for that. We'll stop here a little early, and we'll come back and dig into something that I am going to bring up with the callers starting in just about 10 minutes when we open the phone lines. What does Trump actually want? What is it all about at the end of the day? And how is the Canadian government doing at playing the game? I'm David Smith. This is the Newsday panel. We're back right after this. This is News Radio.
Now you know with Rob Snow continues on News Radio.
Yes, it does. I am not Rob Snow, though. It's David Smith here in for Rob today. Thank you for joining us. It's our Newsday panel. Tim Powers is here, chair of Summa Strategies, as well as Chris Sims with the Alberta Taxpayers Federation. Something I'm going to get into with the callers right after this segment, so we'll tee it up now. What do you think Trump actually wants with this whole tariff game? Is it about the border, NATO, trade surpluses, all of it, none of it? We got a 30-day reprieve from tariffs by taking action on his demands to do with fentanyl. Would you be surprised if between now and 28 days from now, a new demand or two crops up? Will the threat of tariffs actually end before the Canada-US-Mexico trade agreement is formally renegotiated and ratified next year, or do you think we'll just be going around and around until then? Tim?
Well, I think, excuse me, I think it's more superficial to start than that. I think Donald Trump wants to be seen as the man, right? He does want to be able to show Americans that wherever he does business, he controls the agenda. He determines how things work. He wants to project, his whole motto, his whole campaign, Make America Great Again. He believes his own behavior is a projection of American strength. So it's a lot about being the man. As to actual outcomes, I don't think he has an extensive delineated agenda of actual outcomes. I think he goes on, as he did in real estate, on a kind of deal-by-deal basis. So if he gets action on drugs crossing the border, great. If he gets Canada to pay some more money for NATO, great. I don't think he actually wants to control Canada. I do think he has some imperialistic designs, but he's using us to toy with other places that may cave a little bit earlier on all of that. So it's about being the man, the deal maker, the guy who sets the agenda, and in turn, that generates respect and adulation for him at home.
Right, and if that is the case, then I think that would suggest we're in for more hoop jumping down the line. Chris, what do you think?
So two things. I think it's really important, both in communications and politics, to meet people where they are, meaning read their books, understand how they think as best you can. One of U.S. President Trump's most recent books before he became president was entitled Think Big and Kick Ass in Business and Life. Folks should read it because this is the same approach. Come in quick, come in with a big demand, kind of knock over somebody's water at the table, right? Be a bit of a bull in a china shop. And then you get down to negotiations, and then you're the nice guy. This has always been the way he gets deals done. So also, second to that, Professor Ian Lee pointed this out on your show expertly yesterday. This has all been spelled out. Trump has an international trade and finance advisor who has been tasked to go out and find quote-unquote trade deficits with various countries that include security deficits in their mind, and to do it in two rounds. One will be security, the second will be a trade deal. And apparently it's April 1st that the president has given to his advisor before he has to come back with that report. So yeah, I think that we are in for another round, but the second round will probably be more trade-related and less on security. As long as we keep up our end of the deal. If we don't keep up our end of the deal, I think we're going to be in more trouble.
All right. So strap in, everybody.
Yep.
We'll have to leave it there for today. Just running up against the hard out at the top of the hour. Tim Powers, thank you so much. Great to hear from you.
Thank you. Good to talk to you, Chris. And you too, Dave.
Thank you very much. I'm just the host. Chris, great to hear from you as well.
So much more, Dave.
Appreciate
so much
it.
more.
Thank you, Chris.
David, nice to hear you too.
Alberta Director, Canadian Taxpayers Federation. Tim is the chair of a little outfit called Suba Strategies and also managing director, Abacus Data. I am David Smith, your caretaker today here on Now You Know. The phone lines will be open after the top of the hour for Talk Back. And again, that is the question. What does Trump want? What does he want? Got any ideas? Let me know. 1-833-668-2577 after the news on News Radio.
It's time to talk back.
On Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Call now.
And have your say.
1-833-668-2577.
What does Trump want? 1-833-668-2577. What does he want? I'm David Smith, filling in for Rob Snow today. Welcome to Talk Back. Phone lines are open now, 1-833-668-2577. We have 2 hours to take your calls. I'm here to let you have your say on the big news of the day. And here we are. On the 5th of February, 2025, still no tariffs. Still no tariffs. Trade war is on pause. For now. Still, we have a federal minister in Washington today, Washington, D.C., today, meeting with whoever will take her call. The province of Ontario is in a snap election because Doug Ford needs a Trump tariff-specific mandate from the voters, or so he says. The prime minister and all the premiers are meeting in Ottawa today to talk about interprovincial trade, an evergreen issue that has now been thrust into the spotlight. And it's all because of Donald Trump and his threats and his tariffs. all of these politicians tripping over themselves all across the country in a desperate push to figure out how to avoid a trade war. In other words, to figure out what Trump wants and respond to it. We have 28 days. Now, until the new tariff deadline, 28 days. It was 30 days on Monday. Today's Wednesday. That makes it 28. I know many of you are as gripped by this situation as I am. You've been reading and watching the same news just like I have. So it's a pretty simple question for you today. What do you think Trump wants? 1-833-668-2577. And as a follow-up question, if you think you know what Trump wants, based on what you have seen so far this week, will he be satisfied with Canada's response? 1-833-668-2577. Let's get right to the phones. Michael is in Cape Breton. Hello, Michael.
How you doing, Dave?
I'm good. What do you think Trump wants?
He wants a clear door to the Treasury of the United States, unobstructed by anybody, so that he can go and make the same people that are causing all the problems in the States and around the world, those oligarchs, the filthy rich. Let's face it, the richest man in the world got an office right in the White House. How bad is that, or how stupid do you got to be to not know what's going on? And the second part of your question, what does he really want, or what does he really need? He needs a hard punch in the mouth. He's just an old man that got nothing else to do, and you'll never satisfy him. Ignorance breeds ignorance, and greed you'll never cure it.
Right. So, Michael, do you think there's anything that Canada can do really to avoid tariffs if Trump decides he does want to bring in tariffs? Is there anything we can do to stop them?
Yes, we've got another option in this country. We can vote different for once in over 155 years. We can vote different for once. All this talk about is liberal Tory, same old story. We have a third party in this country that brought in all the social values that we reap the benefits of and are very fortunate to have today. And that's the NDP. And give them a chance. If you want to change something, give them a chance. You can boot them out in 4 years if they don't come through. But I think they deserve a chance after all this time.
Okay, Michael. Yep, I got you. Thank you. Thank you for your call, Michael.
Dave.
Michael in Cape Breton thinks if the New Democrats form a government in Canada, we will be spared from Donald Trump's tariffs. I don't agree with Michael on that, but that's his opinion. That's why I'm here. Just gathering opinions. No wrong answers. What does Trump want from us? What does he want from us? 1-833-668-2577. Peter in Langley. Hello, Peter.
Hi.
What do you think Trump wants?
To answer the question directly, what I think Trump wants is what Americans want in general, and why he was elected, is that they want absolute control of the world. I know it sounds dumb, but the thing is I believe that they're trying to tamp down any competition, and they want to, be able to control their destiny, and that's why they're, attacking Russia and China and all that. Is that they're trying to keep down trying to keep away any competition. But I think that it's not just Trump; it's the neocons that are in the government. And I think, like, Americans are long-term strategists, and I think their ultimate aim for Canada is that they want control of the North. They want to be able to put in their missile defense just like they've done over in Europe, because any military threat is going to come over Canada's north. And I think that's what they're softening us up for is, besides things like water and other things, minerals and what have you, I think that the North is very important to them. Do you think he's going to be satisfied? Right now, as you mentioned, the premiers and the prime minister are tripping over each other to kiss his ring. And why they're having discussions about interprovincial barriers is beyond me. They should just sign a paper saying it's all dropped, no negotiations, it's all done, we're under threat, this is an emergency, and there shouldn't be any negotiations. Just sign the paper, all the trade barriers are dropped, and that's that, if they were serious anyways. Now, the biggest thing is that what if we do make another deal with Trump? What does it matter? He can turn around in a few months and come up with some other excuse and break it anyways. He's broken the one that he did from 2016. The Americans made a deal with Iran, and they broke that. So right now, I'm not feeling too trustworthy of the Americans and their signatures. So, how do we make it so that this is a deal that cannot be broken, on a whim. Mm. And, how do we trust them? Basically, what it comes down to. I think we need to really get into an emergency situation here in Canada and diversify trade and, other things. Canada owes Alberta 6 to 8 million barrels per day of pipeline to Tidewater.
Yeah, that would go a long way. That would go a long way. Yep. All right, Peter, we're just running into the break here. Thank you for your call. Great thoughts today, Peter. Thank you. Just running into the break. So Peter's put a couple things on the table there that I find interesting. He said, softening us up. Softening us up. Is Trump softening us up? Getting us used to the idea that we are not as sovereign as we might once have been. Getting us used to the idea that the Americans are going to do stuff in our territory, whether we like it or not. That's interesting. All right, we have to stop here for a break. 1-833-668-2577. We'll get right back to it here in a couple of minutes. I'm David Smith, in for Rob Snow today. This is Talk Back on News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talk Back on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
What does Trump want? David Smith here, in for Rob today. That's the question. What does Trump want? With all this tariff talk, all of this negotiating, this pause, this 30-day deadline, in 28 days from now, will he just have a new list of demands for us, or he'll put the tariffs back on? What does he want? Back to the phones. Al in Alberta. Hello, Al. What does Trump want?
Yeah, Dave, you had a gal on the tax department from Lethbridge. She said, read. We don't have to go back to the story that came out yesterday about the 4 billion year old asteroid. We got to go back 90 years.
Yeah.
A guy was named Adolf, and the appeaser from Britain was Chamberlain, and you know where that headed. We lost us tens of thousands of Canadians over there. I think the first thing we should do today, if we haven't already done it, is call Great Britain and say, get us 40,000 troops down to your station in southern Alberta, the Sheffield station, and do your exercises here on the Canadian border. And that's just for starters.
So you think Trump wants to, he wants to invade us, take us over by force?
Well, he said, like for Greenland, it's not off the table. This morning or yesterday when he was talking to Netanyahu, talking about taking over Gaza. Well, come on, fella. Adolf did the same damn thing, Austria, Poland, all the rest of them over there. And Chamberlain and the rest just stood back and said, oh, he wants that? Well, we'll let him have that. It's not that important. Well, when you got a guy like that, plus yesterday, I don't know if you heard his right-hand man, Musk, talking about the U.S. government worms in the apple. And then he says, there's not a worm in an apple, it's a bowl full of worms. a bowl full of worms is just above a pair of shoulders that he's sitting at the table with. I can't believe this. And he's on a, well, let's go back 50 years in Trump's business world to talk about him being a wonderful businessman. A friend of mine was a subcontractor for one of his jobs. The job went great. He got all his paperwork was signed. All the inspectors said everything. You did a wonderful job. He sent in his invoice for about $80,000. He gets a check for 65% of his bill and a 2-page story about all the things that were wrong because Trump needed the 35%.
And that was Trump's company. That was Trump's company, you mean?
Well, yeah, Trump, but that's his way of operating.
Right.
Anyway,
Okay. Al, I hear you. I want to move along. We've got jam phone lines. Thank you for your call, though. I've heard you have your say. Thank you. Awfully bleak. Al says, invade us by force. He thinks that we should go back to our Commonwealth roots and ask the UK military to send some troops. Whew. That's pretty heavy. Let's try Donna in Halifax. Donna, what does Trump want?
Oh, hi. Thanks for taking my call. I think, in my opinion, Trump wants to be known all around the world as the top dog and basically gets what he wants, however he does it. But, I think he's a bit of a bragger. And I don't agree. A few things he's done I agree with, but others no. This tariff, definitely no. No. And I'm still of the opinion, I called a few weeks ago and said there will be no tariff. At the very end, he's huffing and puffing, and you watch. I'm hoping that I'm right. I'm really hoping for Canada that I am right. Anyway, a couple of things that he has helped Canada by, threatening this tariff. Our borders are cleaned up. The drug czars or whatever, cartels,
the fentanyl czar,
are now described as terrorists, so they'll be arrested more. There's more being done at the border. We're fixing up the borders better, and more people are buying Canadian goods and helping the Canadian business people and whatnot. So a few good things will come out of this, but I'm hoping and praying that in the long run there will be no tariffs. I'm still thinking positive.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Donna. Appreciate the call today.
Thanks. Bye.
That's Donna in Halifax. That takes us to our break. We'll stop here. Everybody hang on the line. I'll get to you in just a few minutes. It's David Smith here, in for Rob Snow. This is Talk Back on News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talk Back on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
It's David Smith here, sitting in with you today. Pretty simple question for you. What do you think Trump wants? With this whole tariff negotiation thing. 28 days now. We have a deadline counting down, 28 days. What do you think he wants? Will he be satisfied with what the Trudeau government has done so far? With the border and the fentanyl czar? Or do you think there's more to it than that? What does Trump want? Back to the phones, very busy. Sean in Alberta is next. Hi, Sean. You're on the air.
Hey, so what this is all about is when Trump lost the election to Joe Biden and Trudeau went to the G8 and was laughing on international news about Trump and joking about Trump.
Oh, yeah.
Trump remembers that.
Oh,
He
yeah.
saw that. This is about rubbing Trudeau's face in the sand. And we need an election. We need new representation because this bully needs to be punched in the nose. It's the only way to deal with the bully. I was born with a birthmark on my face. I've been dealing with bullies my whole life. You got to walk right up to them and punch them in the nose. How about we turn everything off for 24 hours? Everything. No electricity, no oil, no nothing. No borders. Shut it all down on the 29th day. See how they think about that. See what happens. They'll know. Turn it off for 7 days, a month, whatever. They'll know. They will come to a crawling halt.
So you think it's about settling a score with Trudeau?
I really do.
Yeah.
I think that Trudeau was laughing at Trump on international news with all the other G8 leaders, all the other Europeans, that Trump saw that And he remembers. That guy is as narcissistically petty as they come.
All right, Sean, thank you for weighing in today. I appreciate the call.
Thank you.
Let's go next to Eric in Halifax. Eric, what does Trump want?
He wants to be the kingpin, man. That's the bottom line. He wants people to get off his back and stop depending upon the states. Now, I'm a true Canadian, and Canadians, what they have to do is go to fight fire with fire. This man is just buying time. I don't know what the G's he's doing. If I knew what Trump was doing, I'd be one of the wealthiest men in the world.
Yeah.
I mean, you tell me what he wants, Dave, because he doesn't know himself. I mean, he's so mixed up, he doesn't know if he's coming or going.
He doesn't know himself. Now, that's interesting. So you think he's just taking it as it comes and he's just flying by the seat of his pants?
Yeah, well, he's gone on a trip, but he never left town. That's, I mean, that man is out of this world.
Yeah.
He's got to be the ninth wonder of the world. And that's about all I have to say. I mean, we'll just fight fire with fire, and this call is bluff and let the chips fall where they may.
All right, Eric, thank you.
Okay, bye-bye.
Now, see, that's interesting because as I was thinking about this before the show, Eric just asked me, well, Dave, you tell us what he thinks. I can't tell you what Donald Trump wants because to Eric's point, so much of it doesn't make sense. He says he wants to make America a superpower. Again, it still is a superpower, but he wants to, return to some golden age that he imagines from decades past. He's against free trade, that much is clear. But he also wants to lower prices for the American consumer. At least he says he does. But tariffs aren't going to do that. Tariffs are going to make everything more expensive for everyone. What does Trump want? That's why I'm asking the question. Because I don't know anymore. I can't even tell you what I think he wants. Well, maybe I do have some opinions on what he thinks he wants, but we'll get into that as we make our way through the hour. We have to stop here for the news. Everybody hang on the line. Very busy on the phones. I will get to all of your calls. You will all get on the air to have your say on what does Trump want. David Smith here in for Rob Snow. Back after the news on News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talk Back on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Yes, it is David Smith here in for Rob today, keeping you company here on Talk Back. Question of the day, what does Trump want? What does Trump want? It's kind of like a game show. What does Trump want? Because I don't know anymore. I don't know anymore. With these tariffs, this 28-day deadline now, he was going to do tariffs, and then the Trudeau government took action on fentanyl, and he decided to pause the tariffs. But I don't know. In 28 days from now, when that 30-day deadline is up, is he really just going to say, okay, yeah, forget the whole tariff thing? Or is he going to have some new list of demands for us? And around we go. What does Trump want? Back to the phones. Virginia in Edmonton is next. Hello, Virginia.
Hi, how are you?
I'm fine. What do you think Trump wants?
Well, I personally think he wants order. I feel that he's a just man in his own way, a little bit rough and grumbly and what have you, but he's bringing the hammer down. There's been a lot of things going on and still are a lot of things going on, and he has said that we are all on the edge of war. And all the details on that, a lot of us haven't got a foggy clue what's what, but I intend to think that he's right on that one.
Sure.
I have my reasons for that. But,
on this whole sort of intimidating Canada, forcing us to bend the knee. His press secretary said that they made Canada bend the knee. His press secretary said Canada bent the knee. What do you make of that? What does Trump want? Why does he want us to bend the knee?
Trudeau has not done what he's supposed to be doing. Mm-hmm. To Trudeau, this is a game. He slaps his hand and he's supposed to get this and that and everything, and he's really doesn't care about Canada or Canadians. He really doesn't. And Canada's in the mess that it's in, and we are a gold mine. That's not only to the United States. Canada is a gold mine for the whole world.
Gold
okay?
mine. Okay.
We got everything here. Lock, stock, and barrel, and we got the least amount of people here. And we got the very least amount of military, Air Force, Navy. We don't have a leg to stand on. Okay, and Trudeau, he's thrown that away and leaving us open, and Trump's coming along and he's saying, well, no, I have to protect you guys because you're my northern border. If I don't protect Canada, we could get shot.
So you think you think this is Trump protecting Canada?
Yes.
It's a funny way of protecting us.
To squeeze us to make us do what needs to be done to protect our borders. Now, if we don't play nice in the sandbox, of course he's going to come along and annex us and walk in here, and there ain't going to be sweet tweet you and I or Joe Blow can do about it. So
and if he walks in and annexes Canada, that would be for our own good then. That's what you mean?
Yes,
he would do that for our own good.
For his good and our good. Now, how far that annexation would go or how far he would want to take control is another matter. But the fact of the matter is, if we are under threat, he still has to protect us. And if we don't get our borders, and I'm not talking about the one between the United States and Canada, I'm talking about Bering Strait, all along the north, east and west side. We're 12 miles from Russia.
Okay. Territorial integrity. Right.
Yeah, and I don't think Trump wants Canada per se as to take over and we're going to take your oil and your gas and all of that. No, I don't think so. I think he wants us to comply to help him fight something that we have no idea really what the hell's going on.
Okay.
An invasion of some sort. That's what I'm thinking.
I got you, Virginia.
And,
that's enough of that. That's fine. Yeah, some people out there have really drunk the Kool-Aid on that whole thing. Virginia says Trump is going to invade, annex Canada because he has to protect us, because he's such a nice guy. He loves us so much. If he has to take away our sovereignty to protect us, he will. No, I can't do the mental gymnastics on that one. That one's not making sense to me. I'm asking for your opinions. Len in Calgary. Hi, Len. You're on the air. What do you think Trump wants?
Well, I think it's really simple. Americans, and Trump in particular, suffer from a really severe form of a disease called greed. And Trump campaigned on making America great again. They're already the richest country in the world, but it's not enough. They need more. And they don't care about smaller neighbors who, as Trudeau pointed out, really care about them and have always stood by them. They don't care at all about stuff like that. They care about money, and money is far more important to them than their relationships or anything else. And I think it's as simple as that. And the other thing that a lot of people don't realize is that the drug crisis in America has a lot to do with the fact that America is actually too rich. People have loads of money to spend on drugs and booze and all kinds of other things. And it's really simply because people have lost their way. There's so many people that don't have anything to live for anymore, and that's why it's become all about supposedly a drug issue and all kinds of stuff like that. But it's actually much more simple. It's about greed and actually having too much.
So what do you mean by greed? What does that have to do with us? Like Trump wants access to our resources on his terms to enrich Americans? What do you mean by that?
Well, yeah, he's just putting the squeeze on. I mean, it's economic warfare.
Okay. Yeah.
We've done it, and when I say we, I mean the entire Western world. We have. It's been going on for a long time, and when a poor country decides we need a dime more for our bananas, the Western world, led by America, has said, no, that's way too much. We don't care if your farmers are making next to nothing. We're not paying a dime more for a banana. And it's unfortunately a person like Trump only makes a problem like that a little bit worse.
Right. I gotcha. Okay, thank you, Len. Thank you. I have to run for the break. Appreciate you calling in today.
All right, bye.
That's Len in Calgary. Have to stop here. Hang on the line. One line available now, 1-833-668-2577. I'm David Smith, in for Rob Snow today. This is Talk Back on News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talk Back on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
And it's David Smith here, sitting in with you. Rob is off today, very busy on the phones. I'm just asking, what does Trump want? What does Trump want? And lots of you have opinions on that. Let's keep it going. Jeff in Medicine Hat, thank you for waiting. Jeff, you're on the air.
Hey, Dave, thanks for having me. I just want to give my 2 cents, and I think Mr. Trump is coming for one thing, the most valuable commodity in the world, and that's water. I heard a story from a couple of friends in Newfoundland. They're shrewd businessmen that work for Suncor in Calgary, and they told me a story in 2015 when Ocean Spray Cranberries or whatever walked into their province and tried to buy the province, right? But the smart people of Newfoundland smelled a rat. And I think it was his first term. He talked about running a pipeline from British Columbia to California. I've rode plenty of motorbike. I have a friend that winters down in Arizona, and I spent probably 12 years down there riding motorbikes everywhere. I rode over the Pat Tillman Bridge, visually witnessed Lake Mead. You know, they're out of water. California, Arizona, Nevada, right? So the tariffs are going to break our back, and then they're going to say, hey, well, why don't you give us some fresh water in this next trade deal, right? That's just my 2 cents, boss.
All right. Thank you for that, Jeff. Thank you. That's a new one. Appreciate it. Water. I have heard this before. You know, when the fires were happening, Trump made some comment about, oh, Canada's got all this water from the ice caps in BC, and we could run that down to California. I don't know. I'm no civil engineer, but seems pretty crazy to suggest that you could take water from the Rocky Mountains in British Columbia and pipe it all the way down to California. It just seems kind of nuts. But I'm not an engineer. What am I? An engineer? No, I'm not. Water. Okay, water. I guess we'll add that to the list. Water. What does Trump want? Jonathan in Calgary, what do you think Trump wants?
Hi, good afternoon. Thank you for taking my call.
You're very welcome, Jonathan. Good to hear from you. What do you think Trump's game is here? What does he want from Canada?
You know what? This is just my opinion based on what he said and his behavior and what he is trying to achieve and his vision. To my opinion, first, I think he's serious about really Canada joining U.S. But he also understands that he cannot do it by force, and I believe he also understands our weakness, our differences between the 13 provinces. We're acting like we are 13 different countries. And also he understands the Western Canada, the grievance between Western Canada and the rest of Canada. He understands all this stuff. And to me, what he is doing right now is shaking it up, like playing our emotions, like what we are doing right now. He wants this. He wants this to shake it up, and he wants this to be talked about. And at first, he understands that we don't want this. instant, we want to defend our country. We are proud, but eventually, to my opinion, after this, look what he did. Based on his statement, the imaginary board, the imaginary line, and that could be something. And I think what he's trying to achieve to that is he's looking the vision of the. Let's say, for example, if we continue his imagination, if Canada and U.S. is become one country, oh boy, it's going to be a economic prosperity for the next 1,000 years, right? But to get that, he's shaking us up, and maybe he might get portion of Canada, especially the Western Canada, or he might take the whole country to join the U.S., and I think that's what he is trying to achieve here, and he's just shaking us up and wait and see what opportunity might in the future emerge, and he will grab it.
Okay.
But he's not going to take us by force.
Yeah. Okay, I hear you. Yep. Very well said. Thank you, Jonathan. Thank you. Shaking us up, destabilizing us, playing on our regional differences, the existing unity tensions that we have in this country, to take over us by economic means. Yeah, it's slightly better than being invaded by force, but still a pretty dark picture that Jonathan paints there. Just back to the water before we stop, I did look it up. If you ran a pipeline from Whistler, BC, where the ice caps are, up in the mountains, and you ran a pipeline down the Sea to Sky Highway to Vancouver, across the border, and down I-5 south to Los Angeles, it's 2,177 kilometers. I don't know. They have lakes in the U.S. They've got an ocean right there. Surely desalinating ocean water for reservoirs would be simpler than piping water down from Canada. I'm just speculating, just because somebody brought it up. Okay, we have to stop here. David Smith, in for Rob Snow. It's Talk Back. What does Trump want? I'll get back to the calls on the other side. You're listening to News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talk Back on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
David Smith here, in for Rob today, talking about Donald Trump again. I almost didn't want to talk about Trump today, but it really is the source of all news. All of the news goes back to him. So, simple question today. What does he want? What does Trump want? With the tariffs, with the threats, with this new 30-day deadline, 28 days now, what's going to happen? Will he have more hoops for us to jump through? What does he want? 1-833-668-2577. Jammed phone lines. Let's keep it going. Bernie in Mississauga. Hey, Bernie.
Oh, how you doing, Dave? Listen, Dave, I think I encourage your people to read the Manifest Destiny, published in the 18th century in the American continent. And what their whole objective is right now to get the right of Greaves. They got a multi-billionaire, and you got a far right-wing religious groups that's pushing them, and he wants to conquer the whole continent so that the Americans will have it all in their sphere of influence. The only thing I say can stop is one thing. Canada's a different DNA than Americans. There was never a real socialist movement in the States, but in Canada we had one, and those people will not give up this country with a massive fight. If it comes to that, I'm 77 years old. I'll go to the nearest recruiting office.
Okay, Bernie. Hopefully it doesn't come to that, but thank you for the call today. Appreciate that. Manifest Destiny. Yeah, if you're not familiar with what that is, it's a philosophy, basically. Manifest Destiny, the idea that the United States is destined to take over the continent, has its roots in American exceptionalism. Thinkers of a previous century believe that America is the best way to organize a state and all other states are inferior and ought to be conquered. It's why they expanded west across what is now the United States. killing off the Native American population as they went. It's not exactly an idea that would be accepted by modern-day thinkers. Nonetheless, there are some parallels with what Trump is doing. What does Trump want? Keith in Ottawa before the news. Hi, Keith.
Hi, how you doing?
I'm good. What do you think Trump wants?
Well, Ian Lee, our good friend Professor Ian Lee, has in the Financial Post today, there's a fellow by the name of Stephen Moran, M-I-R-A-N, and he's the chair of the Council of Economic Advisors for Trump. And he's written an essay, A User's Guide to Restructuring the Global Trading System. And if people take the time to read that, they'll see what his goals are and why and the reasoning for him doing that. I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I'm just saying this is such a big influence on Trump right now.
Okay, Moran.
They have been shafted because, I mean, the United States is the most open country as far as tariffs go, and they're providing the defense for so many other countries, and I guess American citizens are paying for it with their taxes.
That is the belief that is definitely taking hold down there.
I strongly urge everybody to read that paper. It's called A User's Guide to Restructuring the Global Trading System by Moran, M-I-R-A-N.
Okay, thank you, Keith.
Got a list in there of possibly where they could.
I got you. We got around. We're right at the end. Thank you, Keith.
Okay.
It's time to talk back
On Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Call now.
And have your say.
1-833-668-2577.
And we're back for hour 2 of Talk Back here on News Radio Today. I am David Smith, filling in for Rob Snow. Thank you for joining us. The topic today, what does Trump want? With all of this tariff back and forth nonsense, this threats, and then he did the tariffs, and then he paused the tariffs, and will reassess in 28 days' time. Will he have new demands for us by then? What does he want? I'm just gathering your opinion. Now that we've been buried in this news cycle for the past 7 days, where do you think things stand? What does Trump want? I've been taking note of some of the answers that I find interesting from the previous hour of calls. Took a lot of calls in the last hour, hope to take a lot in this hour as well. Some of the responses so far, Trump wants to soften us up. It's a shakedown. He wants to soften us up, get us where he wants us to be for the big trade deal renegotiation that happens before the end of next year. Invade us by force. Had a caller who thinks the plan ultimately is to take over Canada by force. I should hope not. More than a few people saying Trump wants to be the big man. He just wants to push us around because he can. Because he can. Settling a score with Trudeau. Yeah, there might be some of that to it. Trump really doesn't like Trudeau. And Trudeau's unpopular. He's in a weak leadership position. Trump knows all of that. Had somebody say they don't think that Trump knows what Trump wants. Maybe. He might be just making it up as he goes along. Money, putting the squeeze on us. Wants our resources, wants access to our resources on favorable terms. Water. Some people think it's all about fresh water. I don't really get that, but some people have brought it up. And to restructure the global trade order. Yeah, there are definitely smart people behind Trump who are anti-free trade, want to try to put that genie back in the bottle and go back to a world where every country has tariffs. Lots of different ideas there from the first hour. Let's keep it going in hour number 2. Joe in Kitchener. Thanks for waiting, Joe. You're on the air.
Yeah, Dave, it's pretty tough to squeeze 10 pounds of crap into a 1-pound bag. Referring to a wide spectrum of thoughts that into a 1-minute response, but I'll do my best. I'll give it the college try. He's looking for fear and leverage. And if you people would go and watch The Apprentice, you'll get an inside look into what he's all about. I know it's an artistic interpretation of the character, but I digress. And some of the responses I've heard from your callers so far are just so ridiculous. It's almost Trumpian in its own right. but, fresh water. Like, first of all, I just sold a business, so I can tell you it takes an incredible amount of energy to push salt water through an RO membrane. And unless you set it right beside a nuclear power plant, it doesn't make economic sense. They have tons of fresh water there. They're not stealing our fresh water, people. Relax.
Okay.
Beyond that, it's all about fear and intimidation. Look at all the Middle East people that are freaking out right now.
Yeah.
Are they too dissimilar from us? No. No. He wants to sow uncertainty and fear and gain leverage so he can exact his mandate and his agenda from a transactional standpoint. Okay, people? That's what I got for you today.
Very well said, Joe. Thank you. Joe in Kitchener. That seems to be the theme as I look at my list. Lots of different ideas, but a theme is emerging, and it's all about money. It's all about money and power and money, and it's about forcing his will onto other people because he can. What does Trump want? Kyle in Listowel, you're on the air. Hey, Kyle.
What's up, my friend? All right, so this is my idea. I think he wants economic World War III.
Okay, what does that look like?
Well, he's doing it right now. He's trying to take it, instead of sending military power to the EU, to Mexico, to China, to Canada, because he's very well said that he wants to make Canada the 51st state. He's not going to do it militarily wise, so why not just collapse their economy in each country and then slowly take over it? I mean, it's no different than he's very good at being a hypocrite, because as America is always good at is do as I say, not as I do. So why would he interfere with the Russia-Ukraine war now when he wants to just take over Canada as a 51st state? Same thing. No, Russia's a big country trying to take over a smaller country. The United States is the biggest military power in the world. Why not take over Canada? And he could do it economically, so what's going to stop him?
Okay. So, 51st state, maybe not officially, but once he has achieved economic subjugation of the Canadian people, effectively we will be the 51st state.
Well, I mean, how are we going to fight back?
Yeah.
I mean, seriously, look at our military. How are we going to fight back?
Well, not militarily. Not militarily.
No, but if our economy collapses, you can't fight back militarily anyway.
Yeah.
The dollar's not worth anything, right? You got nothing to fight against because we have, except for hockey sticks and maybe a case of beer, but that's about it, right? But yeah, that's what I'm looking at. Why not World War III? I mean, look at the way it is. Economically, it might not be fought militarily, but it'll be fighting with the collapse of all the other economies around the world unless we come together and finally decide to say, okay, enough is enough. But if he's going to do one country at a time, and then finally he's going to say, okay, I'm going to go with Canada first as a terrorist. They collapse. Now I'm going to go after Mexico. They collapse. What's going to happen when he has both of those economies in his hand?
Okay, very interesting thoughts, Kyle. Thanks for the call.
Thank you.
Good to hear from you. If the dollar hits, let's say, 50 cents American, and a $40 steak is $80, and gas is $2.40 a liter, I wonder if people might start to warm to this idea of an economic union where we use the American currency and we give up some of our sovereignty. If it gets that bad. I hope we don't get there. It's a pretty dark picture. 1-833-668-2577. It's David Smith here. Lots of time to take your calls. Everybody hang on the line. I'll get to you after the break. This is News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talk Back on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
What does Donald Trump want? What does he want from us? David Smith here in for Rob Snow today. Since this whole tariff debacle started, President Trump has given at least 4 reasons that I can count for what's motivating him to attack Canada with tariffs. Fentanyl, immigration, the trade deficit, and protectionism, restricting U.S. businesses from operating, like banking and agriculture. On Monday this week, Canada avoided tariffs by taking action on the first one, fentanyl. Now there's a new deadline, 28 days from now. Will Trump just keep moving down the list? How long do you think the list goes? What does Trump want? Still jammed on the phone lines. Let's get back to it. Jay is in Kitchener. Hi, Jay.
I just have a question.
Yes.
Let's say we did become the 51st state for 4 years.
Okay.
Would he allow us to go back to what we are now if we did that for 4 years?
I think it'd be really hard to put that genie back in the bottle, don't you think? Once we transfer everything over and restructure the whole state, I think it'd be pretty tough to go backwards.
Yeah. Well, I'm just, we're going to have to reinvent the wheel anyway after 4 years, but it is what it is, and after 4 years, we'll be okay. At least there's an end date. 4 years from now, we will be in a different place than we are now.
Okay. But on his motivation, you think he's serious about that 51st state stuff?
No.
No?
It just do what he wants because he's our boss, don't you know? But we're not. It doesn't matter. He changes it right after he says one thing. He does something else anyway.
Right. He's just having fun. He's just riding the whims that every thought that comes into his brain, he just follows it until he's bored with it again.
He's whimsical, like Sheldon from Big Bang Theory.
All right, thank you, Jay. Good to hear from you.
Yeah, bye-bye.
That's Jay in Kitchener. Anne in Nova Scotia up next. Hi, Anne. What does Trump want?
Hi, Trump wants, well, let me start. Trump is a bully.
Okay.
He's very prejudiced. He doesn't care about anybody but white people. We know that. He's made it clear. And he wants Canada for what we have that his country does not have.
And what is that?
Our resources.
Okay.
And if he thinks that Canada will become his 51st state and have our women not be allowed to have abortions and speak for their own bodies, he's crazy. And this thing in Gaza,
yeah,
he wants to make this Gaza into a Riviera, and I can guarantee you he'll want it with his name on it. He wants the attention. He needs the attention. And Donald Trump is not running the United States. Elon Musk is telling Donald Trump what to do.
Okay. Attention.
And I would put
okay.
money on that.
Yeah. He likes the attention. He's being motivated by all the attention he's getting.
Oh, he loves it. He thrives off it. He's just a real piece of work. And you know what I think he is? He's mental. He's really got a mental illness that is beyond repair. I really do, from the abuse he took as a child from his father.
Okay, and strong thoughts today. I think you bit your tongue on that one. I think you wanted to use even stronger language, and you didn't, so I appreciate that.
No, I didn't want to use stronger language.
Okay.
I'm just thinking about him being able to pardon all those people that attacked the White House.
Yeah.
And then he has the right to fire all those FBI. What the heck is going on?
What the heck is going on?
What the heck is going on? You know what's going on? He loves the attention. And this man who called in earlier to your show and said, stop trying to cater to him, shut the power off in the United States for a month. He said in his election rampage that he was going to look after the American people. Do you know what? He doesn't care about the American people. He cares about the dollar and himself. He does not care about the American people.
Okay, Ann, thank you for your call today. Appreciate that.
Should keep looking over his right shoulder, I'm sure.
Okay.
Anyway.
All right. Thank you, Ann. Thank you.
All
That's
right.
Ann in
Bye.
Nova Scotia. One more here before we stop. It's going to be Bob in Calgary. Hi, Bob.
Hi, how you doing?
I'm fine. What do you think Trump wants?
So I think he basically wants just action. He's come into power. He's got 4-year term. He's got to get his mandate or whatever he told the Americans he would do done, and he's got a limited time. And the problem is, dealing with every other country, no one can make a decision, including our own. So look what he's achieved in, 3 weeks? just by saying, "Oh, we'll stick 25% tariffs on you."
Well, what do you achieve? What do you see him having achieved? What? No, but what, Bob? When you say what has he achieved? What has he achieved?
Well, I mean, here we are. We're going to spend 1.2 billion, is it, on new border reinforcements to stop fentanyl, to stop immigration. Mexico's going to be doing the same, putting 10,000 people, 10,000 soldiers on the border to stop immigration and drugs and what have you. He's got action. He's got. Otherwise, you know, we've been talking about reinforcing the border for years and never do anything about it, as always. And I suspect the next thing he'll be doing will be doing it to Europe and saying, get your 2% into NATO, otherwise you're going to take tariffs because we're not going to pay for your military.
So he just wants to spur action. He just wants to use his power to make people do things.
Yeah, he wants to get things done quickly.
All right. Okay, interesting. Thank you, Bob. Appreciate the call today. Yeah. You know, there is a lot of commentary, though, about just what Trump has achieved here. I mean, Mexico sending 10,000 troops to the border, that's pretty significant. I'll give him that. But Canada's border plan, I don't know. $1.3 billion over 6 years. So a couple $100 million a year. I'm not even sure how that's costed out right now. I'm still unclear on that. I don't know if they actually have any money. Because the House isn't sitting. They can't pass any legislation. Can't pass a spending bill. Where's this $1.3 billion coming from? Has Trump gotten action from Canada? He's gotten a press release. He's gotten an announcement, a commitment. But real action? I don't know. As we sit here talking about it today, the federal government is cutting 3,000 employees from the CBSA. The Trudeau government's budget cuts will remove 3,000 employees at the Canada Border Services Agency. Doesn't sound like action on the border to me. 1-833-668-2577. I'm David Smith. In for Rob Snow. This is Talk Back on News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talk Back on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
What does Trump want? David Smith here in for Rob Snow today. Fentanyl, immigration, trade deficit, protectionism, sovereignty. Take your pick. He's been all over the place, this Trump guy, the last couple of weeks. What do you think he really wants? What's it going to take for us to get out from under the threat of these tariffs? Reiko in Calgary. Hi there. You're on the air.
Hey there.
What do you think Trump wants?
You have to understand Trump's worldview. I think to understand this, so there's a reason that he wants us, and I do believe he wants us as the 51st state. He's not saying Mexico should be the 52nd state. The reason for that is because culturally and economically and a lot of other things we're pretty similar to the United States.
Sure.
The other thing is, too, he does want all our resources. He does want, to have military control over this area. It's all part of it. The reason
he wants control. You think he does want to use whatever means he can to really take control of Canada?
Exactly, and he's not going to militarily intervene, but he knows if he uses economic pressure, he can get us to buckle. And again, he sees the world as a game of Risk. I don't know if you've played that game, but you take over area by area, and he would be threatening Russia with the same kind of languages if they were right next door. But since we're right next door, and with his expansionist mindset, we're the first ones he's kind of going after. And why isn't he saying anything about the Ukraine war? Because that's somewhere else. He's not really concerned at the moment.
Yeah, he was supposed to end that war on day one, and still going on. Still going on. Curious.
Yeah, so basically he just wants us for the economic benefits, and because, again, he doesn't respect us as a country, so why shouldn't we be a 51st state? He's very serious about that. And the other thing I want to say, too, is he's a different animal than in his first term. In his first term, he was a little bit scared, and he was worried about what everyone would say. And this time around, he's going to pursue his sort of fantasies and that sort of
Unleashed.
thing. And,
Trump Unleashed, version 2.
Yeah, he's not concerned this time. And what he's doing right now is he's testing the waters and seeing.
Yeah, I got you. We got to run. We're right at the end. Thank you, Reiko.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talk Back on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
And it's David Smith here, sitting in for Rob today. Thank you for joining us. 1-833-668-2577. What do you think Donald Trump wants? What does he want? All opinions are welcome. Because frankly, I don't know what he wants. The longer we cover the daily fire hydrant of information coming out of the Trump White House, the less any of it makes much sense to me. So help me out here. What does he want? What will get us out from under the threat of these tariffs? Steve in Calgary, what do you think Trump wants?
Hi, I think it's just he just wants to be like the father of a nation, have his face on Mount Rushmore, narcissism. Like he wants to just be the father of the North American country. And honestly, I know this is going to sound like a conspiracy theory and crazy, but I think this economic stuff is just the beginning. I think within a year or two, we'll probably have, it could be as big as like another terrorist attack, or it could be just something as like, we've seen Russian subs off the coast of BC. We need to be there. He's going to make the case that Canada needs us to protect them. I think, and I don't even think it matters what we think. He just needs to convince the American public enough to get behind him to do it. And that's where I think this is going to go. And I really wish I didn't, but that's where I think it's going to go.
No, it's not totally crazy, Steve. It's not totally crazy because the Arctic ice is melting. China has more vessels in the Arctic than Canada does. If things keep going the way that they're going, there will be new trade routes through Arctic waters that will be incredibly lucrative. And if Canada does not have the capacity to control with force that part of our territory, other countries like Russia and China are going to come in and exploit that weakness. So I don't think you're totally off base there.
Yeah. Well, the thing I think about is like George W. Bush seemed a hell of a lot more of a sane person than Trump. And I mean, they faked the weapons of mass destruction to go into Iraq. Yeah. What is there going to be reasoning with us? Because I mean, it's not even going to be military. We're not going to fight back. It's going to be them showing up one day saying,
well, under the guise of an alliance, right? We're here to help our Canadian partners, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah. I think, and I mean, they've got the money. The CIA has the know-how. They're going to start affecting the Canadian opinion, and I think in the next few years, they're just going to work on us. I mean, they've already got, like, something like 30% of people under 25 would want this, and it's not going to take much, I don't think, to make popular opinion shift that way.
Yeah. Thanks, Steve. Yeah, thoughtful call today. You've been paying attention. Thank you, Steve. I appreciate that. Yeah. Yeah, the polling... All right, I'll say this about polling. In defense of my generation, because I'm a lot closer to 25 than probably most of you. It wasn't that long ago. Young people are very impressionable. Young people these days suffer from generationally poor media literacy. A lot of them believe things that are not true. I am living proof that even in today's technological communications age, the older you get, the more you learn, and the more your opinions come back to be grounded in reality. In defense of young people who tell pollsters, sure, make us the American 51st state. I don't care. I'm paying $3,000 for rent. I'm making $50,000 a year. I'll never be able to retire. A lot of young people feel very hopeless right now. In defense of young people. Kind of a tangent. What does Trump want? That's the question. Tom in Cambridge. Hi, Tom.
How you doing, Dave?
I'm good. What does Trump want?
Well, there's a few things everybody's touched on in that, but I'll start with Stephen A. Smith. And Stephen A. Smith outlined and very articulately outlined Donald Trump. And Donald Trump is a very spiteful, resentful person. and vindictive. When he wanted to buy the Buffalo Bills, and the NFL people did not want Donald Trump in the NFL, they said no, and he came out and said, I will remember this, I will get them. Everything that Donald Trump has invested in, when you look over the years, he no longer has. All his Trump casinos and palaces went bankrupt. If we're thinking about, annexing our sovereignty, we are part of the British Commonwealth, which a lot of people don't realize still or are aware of, and that we still belong to the British Commonwealth. And before that would happen, I think the British Commonwealth would step in to intervene on that. Secondly, is that, I would rather go back to the monarchy, as bad as it all was and everything else, and become under British rule again, than go to the United States and become the 51st state. There has been no one has been shy on the American side over the last 50 or 60 years saying that they would love to have our natural resources. They know there's no oil in the Arctic. They know we have lots of minerals. We have the largest freshwater body. So why would they not want us? The thing is, concerning what he wants is, he wants what he can't have. And I just watched a bit of American Primeval, which was about Brigham Young in Utah. And there's a lot of things I didn't realize about Brigham Young and the Mormon militia and that. And reminding me a little bit what's going on today with Trump and how Brigham Young gained land, what he did to get the land, and what happened along the way. So Donald Trump wants something that, in his way, is, again, it's land, money, and power and control. Unfortunately, with every time there's an empire, if you look at Roman history and some other histories, those dictators are gone for a reason, and were taken out for a reason. So, and for the young people thinking that this is them, we become part of the U.S. and have this and that, you lose what you already have. You're not going to retain it. You're not going to have a healthcare system. You're not going to have the wages you have right now. Most of the states have a minimum wage. A minimum wage in the states is $7.25. Your cost of living will not be any cheaper. It's not going to get any better. And for his saying, we don't need Canada to do this and do that, then is he going to support 41 million people on welfare who aren't going to need the jobs, who aren't going to be able to do anything else now, just sit at home and catch rays or shovel snow? Are they willing to do that? So let's just look at it from a person. He wants what he can't have. He will do certain things to get it. And if you haven't noticed what's happening right now in the States, it's almost like the civil rights movement again. People are starting to unite down there, and they're not going to take what's going on right now either. So, yes, he wants the money. It's all about money and control. And another thing I'll leave is, would you want somebody who's not an elected official, who has not cleared a security clearance, involved in your personal life right now, is what they're doing in the States?
Yeah.
And that is my point.
All right. Very well said, Tom. Thank you for the call today. That's Tom in Cambridge. I am David Smith sitting in for Rob. We are winding down the show now. Just 19 minutes left to take your calls. Have a few people on the line. One line available at 1-833-668-2577. If you call now, we'll get you on the air before the end of the hour. Again, the question is, what does Trump want? Back after this, you're listening to News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talk Back on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
David Smith here, sitting in for Rob today, asking, what does Trump want? In the last week, Trump has put forward 4 different rationales that I can count for his tariff attack on Canada. We had fentanyl, we had immigration, we had trade deficits, i.e. making Canada the 51st state, protectionism. He was complaining about some of the rules we have around banking and agriculture and dairy. All of these things are not new. These were all trade irritants the last time he was in power, but this time it's a little bit different. The stakes have been raised significantly. So what does Trump want? 1-833-668-2577. Back to the phones. Up next is Zoltan in Cambridge. Hi, Zoltan.
How the hell are you?
I'm good. What do you think Trump wants?
Well, I'll tell you, I've been waiting, and since I've been waiting, I've had all these people say a whole bunch of things. So I'd like to comment on each one of them just for a couple of seconds and get to the main thrust of what I want to say. Is that okay with you?
Go right ahead. Go right ahead.
Okay, first of all, somebody said there was no end date. There was an end date to Trump. Trump doesn't feel that way. Trump has people who he will put into the presidency who will do what he says, or he will try to do things. As far as military control goes over Canada, it is not very good at all. Bad policy. The damn country is too big. People are too small, and it doesn't work financially. Okay.
Okay.
Now, the Canada, which is one of the biggest countries in the world, they have 4 canoes, one on the west coast, one on the east coast, one on the north coast, and another one somewhere else, and none of them have any firepower, and that's how they govern what's going on in the coastline. That's what they have.
You're right. You're being facetious, but yeah, you're right. You're right. Yeah.
They have frigates.
Yeah.
And they are unarmed. What kind of crap is that? How are you going to defend your country that way? So bananas at them, The oil in the north. Well, god darn, Russia and China are going to go after that. And who's going to help anybody? The United States of America. Why can't Canada do something to help? It is I don't know if you knew or not, the ocean and in the north is the shallowest of all the seas in the world. The easiest to get at for oil. Okay. The young who maybe want to do things and so on, man, I'll tell you, $36 million on a movie over a weekend with a green screen. That's what they know. They don't know shit.
Whoa, okay, easy, Zoltan.
Okay, I'm sorry. They don't know a lot, okay?
Okay.
Now, as far as water goes, water comes from Lake Mead now to a place like the Phoenix, and Phoenix has been overly populated because of a number of years ago there was a great earthquake in Los Angeles. They all came to Phoenix, so now Phoenix needs more and more water. Now the city of LA County has more and more people again, so they need water. But the big thing here is they need water for things like wineries. They need things like for apples and oranges and everything else that they send to Canada.
Yeah.
In order to desalinate water is so darn expensive.
Yeah, but so is building a pipeline that's 2,000 kilometers long. You're talking tens of billions of dollars to do that.
Not if you get Canada paid for most of it.
And I don't see Canada capitulating on building a pipeline through American territory.
Brigham Young, I know, and I've read about Brigham Young. He fought like crazy to have his religion, properly done, and so on and so on. And oh my God, there was so many bad people fighting him. He was a zealot, I agree. But he did do his thing. Now,
okay. So let's bring it back. Listen, we're running out of time. What do you think Trump wants? It's a simple question.
I'll tell you what. You say all these things about the water. You say all these things about control, this and that and that and that and that. I'll tell you what Trump is doing. He is building an oligarchy. Do you know what an oligarchy is?
Yes, I'm familiar.
It is the largest private owners in the country. They possess sufficient political power to influence their own interests.
So he wants to set up an oligarchy and ultimately bring an end to American democracy.
Don't forget, when he was last time he was president, when he was talking to Putin, he thought Putin was the cat's meow. Okay.
Oh, he loves Putin. He's a big fan of dictators, Mr. Trump. Big fan. He admires them.
He had nothing but people with money around him. And that's what he's doing. That's why he has this monk guy or whoever the hell he is, another billionaire, and they are together. They will control not only the factories, not only the ammunitions, not only the airplanes, they will control the entire country.
Okay. All right. I got to let you go, Zoltan. I've given you lots of time. Thank you very much for your call. I appreciate your call today. Okay, that was a lot. We'll stop here. Hickey, if you want to hang on the line, I'll take your call next. We have to stop, and then we'll wrap this up on the other side. What does Trump want? I'm David Smith. In for Rob Snow, it's Talk Back. This is News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talk Back on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Back to the phones. Hickey in Calgary. Last word to you, my friend. What does Trump want?
I think it's funny because, I mean, it's not like we didn't see him 4 years ago. You know, Trump would wake up in the morning and tweet something and the stock market would either crash or skyrocket. You know, the reason that Trump likes Putin is he's a lot like Putin. Putin's trying to do it with bullets and tanks. And I think Trump wants to take over the world, but he wants to do it financially. I think Trump has really an inferiority complex. I think the biggest thing for Trump is, you know, for the last 4 years, people tried to put him in jail and everybody, you know, said he was a criminal and this and that and everything else. Now he just wants to throw his weight around to just prove to everybody that, you know, he can be the best world leader around. And I think he needs that recognition. I think the tariffs are a thought that came up in the middle of the night. You know, no one else ever thought about doing all these tariffs, and Trump finally came up with the magic bullet and decided to throw it out there, and now he wants to follow through and see where it goes. I'm hoping that with enough people around him that are smart enough, they can talk him a little bit off the ledge. But I mean, even the golf course that he wants to put in Gaza, like at some point in time, the rest of the world's going to look at this guy and go, hey, you know what? Can we have Sleepy Joe Biden back? Because I'd rather watch him look for the stairs than listen to Trump's thought of the day on taking over the world or, you know, doing whatever he's going to do. I think that the rest of the world needs to look internally like Canada. The only good news about this is, you know what? As Canadians, we're looking in internally and saying, okay, we've been sitting around not doing much for a long time and riding on their coattails. It's time for us to figure out all these natural resources we have and how we can get them to China, the EU, and everywhere else in the world. And, you know, that's the only good part about this. I mean, our border is broken. How many cars did we lose out of Ontario? I mean, we heard it was a national pandemic a couple months ago from the federal government because all these cars are disappearing while they're going in sea cans and going overseas. I think part of the stuff that he's making us do is just pause, look at what's really broken in our country, and we're deciding to fix it. That's the good part about this whole thing. The bad part is I think we're just going to have to deal with his thought of the day every day for the next 3.5 years.
Okay, thank you, Hickey. I appreciate the call. I'll leave you with this. Maybe the best way to figure out what Trump wants is just to listen to him. This was back in October at a campaign rally. Let's listen closely to what Trump was saying then.
And I say the most beautiful word in the entire dictionary of words is the word tariff. I love tariff. I can make anybody do anything through the use of tariffs. I can keep people out of war. I can keep us out of war.
I love tariff. I can make anybody do anything through the use of tariffs. I can make anybody do anything through the use of tariffs. From the horse's mouth. Thank you for all of those calls today. It's been a pleasure sitting in with you. I am David Smith. The latest breaking news is coming up next. You're listening to News Radio.